time, it was also one of a part of the process was consolidating India, the domain of India, into which many of the needed existing small republics, some of them were princely states, some of them were provinces. So all of them, they got integrated into the dominion of India. However, the proposal was also to bifurcate the dominion of India into Pakistan and India, and one part would be Muslim majority dominated and the other would be the Hindu dominated India. And most of us know the history of what happened around that period. But though the transition was by and large peaceful, there were problems. Okay, with regard to problems with regard to the partition of India and the communal riots, they were there. But one thing of importance was that Kashmir, which was a princely state at that time, this was a Muslim majority state, but ruled by a Hindu king, Raja Hari Singh. And they opted not to get integrated into either India or Pakistan. And Kashmir wanted to be an independent state. But some tribes from Pakistan, they attacked the territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And the Raja of Kashmir, who thought he wouldn't be able to fight them all alone, he sought help from India. And the Indian administration rather wanted Kashmir to accede to India. And the proposal in fact technically came from the Raja Hari Singh, and he said he was willing to accede to India. He would accede to India, and he wanted India to help them. And the instrument of accession, the Raja Hari Singh, he executed the instrument of accession, which is more in the form of a treaty, an agreement between two independent countries. So students of international law will be knowing well about treaties or agreements. Treaties are agreements between two or more countries, for your simple understanding. And when Raja Hari Singh executed that, and this is more like an aspect of international law. And after India became independent, Kashmir acceded to India. But then Kashmir always wanted to retain its special position. And this was made very clear in the instrument of accession. And Raja Hari Singh said that this instrument shall not be changed without my consent. And the constitutional provisions or anything else shall not be made applicable to Kashmir, the Indian constitution. So without my consent, and he said my consent is my successors and his. So the special status of Kashmir or special position of Kashmir was very clearly made out in the instrument of accession. And after that, the Constituent Assembly, which was established in Jammu and Kashmir for drafting a constitution, they were asked to decide whether the Indian constitution could be made applicable to them, if so to what extent, or whether they wanted a separate constitution, etc. They drafted a separate constitution for Jammu and Kashmir, and the Constituent Assembly of Kashmir was dissolved after that. And without saying anything about Article 370. So because of the special position of Kashmir and the instrument of accession, we have in the constitution an article 370 which confers special status on Jammu and Kashmir. And besides that, we also have other provisions like article 238 which have perpetuated the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, article 238 which no longer is there, of course. And then the more important article 35A, which also shows the special status in terms of permanent residence, a special citizenship for Jammu and Kashmir. and the land rights relating to that. And these are all the things, friends, which made Kashmir appear like separate from the rest of India. And it was commented that Article 370 is the only link between Kashmir and other parts of India. And in this backdrop, what exactly happened in Parliament on 5th and 6th of August? And by 9th August, the President has given his assent to the resolution relating to the status of Jammu and Kashmir. So, this would be the subject matter of discussion today. And we have constitutional experts among the teachers, and Professor Madhusudan Rao Garu is here, and Professor D.S. Prakash Rao Garu, he also said that he would be joining later. And then we have the other teachers, Professor Vijayalakshmi, Sita Manikyam, and V.K. Prasad, and then Pallavi, and all the others. I request all of, and Professor Madhusudan Rao would lead the discussion now, and he would clarify to us most of the aspects, legal and constitutional aspects relating to the status of Jammu and Kashmir and the recent developments. And after that, I request the teachers also to express their opinions, and the students also to take part actively in the discussions. And thank you, friends, and I now.
What really went on at the time of drafting Article 370, and what happened between the dramatist persona in Pakistan and India during 1947, and what provisions are there in Article 370. If Article 370 is to be abrogated, then how it has to be abrogated or annulled? And in the international parlance, Government of India has certain obligations under Article 370, whether these obligations are to be complied with or not. Can they be complied with? So these are the issues which I want to consider. Historically speaking, before 1947, before 1946, Dr. Hari Singh was the King of Kashmir, Dogra King, the father of President Karan Singh. And at that time, immediately after partition of India, there are more than 565 princely states. In these princely states, Lord Mountbatten requested all the princes to join in any union at their instance. We don't want to impose anything on you. In whichever union you want to join, whether it is Hindustan or Pakistan, you join. All of them adjusted in two countries, and very few princely states objected this. Princely states, being sovereign states, they have objected this. One such state is the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And Maharaja never intended to join either in Pakistan or in Hindustan. He wanted to have his own country. But by that time, the dominant person in this entire affair was Jawaharlal Nehru, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and Lord Mountbatten, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and then V.P. Menon, Secretary to the State's Ministry. These are the people who bargained for this particular arrangement. V.P. Menon as well as Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel were intended to see that this should be joined with India. By that time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah has floated the idea of two nationality. Muslims must go to Pakistan, Hindus must go to Hindustan. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah exercised a lot of power, political power on Hari Singh to admit the state into Pakistan for the reason that It is a majority Muslim state. So accordingly, it must be joined with the Pakistan according to the two-nation theory floated by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. But Nehru said that not Mountbatten himself objected this. No, we should not put any pressure on any ministry, any princess. Let them accede to any union. That is Pakistan or Hindustan. We are giving a 100% liberty. There is no pressure as such on you people. But somehow Jinnah has not resented. He started his own tactics for the purpose of taking away the state in the name of two-nation theory. If two-nation theory of Jinnah is to be accepted, Muhammad Ali Jinnah claimed 3 states from India, including Junagadh, which is a majority Hindu state, that more than 85% of the people were Hindus in India. In those 3 states, including Junagadh. If this theory was correct, then how do he claim the Hindus in his state? So there was some partiality connected with this. And the Burmese personnel have not exercised any kind of resistance on this. Nehru kept quiet, saying that we will conduct a plebiscite according to your own wishes. And in the plebiscite, the people will decide this. If a plebiscite is to be conducted, under whose supervision it is to be conducted, said Jinnah. Jinnah said that right now your forces are in Kashmir. Your forces will manage the plebiscite to allow the army forces. Consequently, I would not accept if the plebiscite is conducted under the supervision of your forces. Consequently, the plebiscite will be conducted under the supervision of the Pakistani forces. That was the demand of Jinnah. Nehru was not accepted. And then Nehru said that better will go for plebiscite under the supervision of ELO. This Mountbatten kept quiet. You do whatever you want. We will not interfere. The only thing is, when we leave the country, 2 countries must be clearly separated, and then we leave the country. That is our intent. If you want to conduct a plebiscite under ELO, it is up to you to conduct. No problem. So this is vividly described by V.P. Menon in a famous book known as The Story of Integration of Indian States. The most important book for this reason, for this purpose, is that one. Many more things were written in that. All those things are not necessary for us. So this is historical. And when the constitution is being drafted, we have many number of uncertain areas. Most of the constitutions in the world are framed during the crisis situations and in circumscribed conditions. At liberty, constitutions were not enacted anywhere in the world. Immediately after the revolution, they will frame a constitution, and then they will provide certain rights, and then they want to streamline the social changes, the economic changes, the social equality before social institutions. All these things they brought up at a later stage. This is known as transformative constitutions. So at the time of enacting this, the constitution they write it, and some provisions are added to this, and these provisions may be temporary in nature. One such temporary provision is Article 370. And so far the federalism that is implemented under the Indian Constitution is concerned, we have asymmetric federalism in our country. Asymmetric federalism means states are autonomous, subject to the aspirations of ethnic groups, multi-religious groups, multi-linguistic groups, and these groups must be satisfied. For this reason, we have many number of asymmetric federal provisions under the Indian Constitution, right from Article 370 onwards, 371, Maharashtra and Gujarat, 372, Assam, in this way Meghalaya, Tripura, all these states are having their own asymmetric federalism. We do not have uniform federalism in the country. That is the most important one we have to recognize. When the asymmetric federalism or the differential federalism is provided, how to remove these things when equality is established among all these groups? You cannot continue this temporary period for a very long time. Jammu Kashmir is concerned, the Constituent Assembly has discussed the provision of Article 370 in a bad shape for more than 5 months. And then this shape is most inconsistent with any kind of federalism. Because we can control anything except law and order there. Consequently, there is terrorism in the country. So how to remove this Article 370 was the main problem on the law. And so far as Article 370 is concerned, that itself contained a provision for repeal. Normally, Indian Constitution is there. There is no provision for repeal of the Indian Constitution. Repeal provision provides that the Government of India Act 1935, the Indian Independence Act 1947 were repealed hereby. That is the repeal provision, Article 395. So, except this, how to repeal Indian Constitution means it is not there. Whereas, Article 370 contains the repeal provision also. The repeal provision is mentioned in clause 3 of Article 370. Clause 3 of Article 370 says that it is given power to the President to repeal the article. Normally, repealing an article, people say that it is a part of amending power. So, amending power is vested in the President in the form of a consultation with the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir had a Constituent Assembly for the purpose of writing the Constitution. After writing the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir was dissolved in 1957 itself. In 1956, the Constitution came into force, Jammu and Kashmir Constitution. And from that day onwards, our people started thinking of how to remove it. The political will in our country is not uniform. We have pluralistic tendencies, and at the same time, this pluralistic tendency always promotes divisiveness. For that matter, asymmetric federalism itself promotes divisiveness. The relation between Andhra Pradesh and the Union of India is one thing, and the relation between Andhra Pradesh and Manipur is another thing. In Tripura, when it is acceded to India in 1970, the provision is added to the Constitution in Tripura section, stating that all the laws, including customary laws of Tripura, shall be valid even after it is acceded to India, and subject to this only the Parliament will enact a law, or state legislature will enact a law. It means all the existing provisions of Tripura are valid now, even if they are inconsistent with the constitutional provisions. And then many number of other asymmetrical provisions provides for devolution of powers. There are separate autonomous councils for administration of those areas. We do not have any autonomous council as such. We have legislative assembly, and we have governor, and we have high court, and these people will rule the state. Whereas they have autonomous councils, in addition to governors, in addition to legislative assemblies, if they are any legislative assembly, and in addition to high courts. So that is the reason why this asymmetric federalism is always perpetuating the secessionist tendencies, and they have to be arrested if the country is to be united. Some 2 years back, intelligence report stated that more than 2/3 of India is not in the state of in the country, in the hands of Union of India, but it is in the hands of some foreign countries. We do not know this, but this is a fact. They promote their own interests in India by promoting NGOs. So what I am going to say is, if Marxist nationalism, which is advocated by the present Prime Minister, is to be realized, this asymmetric federalism has to be given a go-by. If asymmetric federalism is resolved, the linguistic groups will have their own rights, the religious minorities will have their own rights. It does not mean that it is anti-religious. If asymmetric federalism is not there, it does not mean that it is anti-religious. It is not so. You can protect your religious identity even without asymmetric federalism. because there is no uniform law as such. For this reason, if Article 370 is to be removed from the statute, what is the procedure? The procedure is prescribed in Clause 3 of Article 370. Power is given to the President to remove this article and not to the Parliament under Article 368. If any amendment is to be made to the Constitution, it must be amended by the Parliament under Article 368. Now, in some quarters it is said that since Article 368 is not invoked, this particular amendment is invalid. And the express provision here is President, in consultation with the concurrence of the Council, the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, he can dissolve this, he can repeal the article. That is the thing that is mentioned here. So that's the reason why what we have to now analyze is whether constituent power can be exercised by any other body other than Constituent Assembly. First we have to decide. Take Indian Constitution. This issue was raised before the Supreme Court in Shakti Prasad versus of India itself in 1950. And in this case it was argued that the First Amendment Act, which added Article 31A, 31B, along with the 9th Schedule, and Article 15, Clause 4 for the purpose of providing reservations in educational institutions, these are inconsistent with Article 14. Consequently, these must be struck down as invalid, and Article 31A and 31B along with the 9th Schedule is invalid. For the purpose, it is inconsistent with Article 31, which was a fundamental right at the time. Consequently, these must be declared as unconstitutional in view of Article 30 in Clause 2. Article 30 in Clause 2 there says that post-constitutional laws must be consistent with the constitutional provisions. If they are inconsistent with, or abridging, or taking away, then they are void. They are void in issue, void from the beginning. So, in the light of this, it was argued, the Supreme Court accepted that Parliament is having two kinds of powers. One is legislative power known as LP under Article 246. It is Article 246 which distributes the legislative powers between the Union and the states. So if the Parliament enacts any law under Article 368, then it is known as legislative power. If the Parliament enacts any law under Article 246, if it is enacted under Article 368, it is known as the constitutional power. The present amendment, that is First Amendment Act was made by Provisional Parliament. Provisional Parliament means the Constituent Assembly which wrote the Constitution. So this Provisional Parliament made this First Amendment, and the First Amendment was said to be exercised in the power of a constituent power. Consequently, the court said that these theory of two kinds of powers in one particular legislation or legislature is accepted by the court, and subsequently it was reiterated by the Supreme Court in Sajjan Singh versus Rajasthan. Now, Jammu Kashmir Assembly, Constituent Assembly, was dissolved in 1957. When this particular Article 370 specifically speaks of concurrence of the Constituent Assembly, where the Constituent Assembly you can get, whether it is badly drafted or correctly drafted, or whether it is cunningly drafted. To my mind, Article 370 is cunningly drafted. I do not know who is responsible for using this Constituent Assembly in the Article 370. Where you will get 370 Constituent Assembly of the enactment of the Constitution? Every Constitution in the world is written by Constituent Assembly. After the Constitution came into force, the Constituent Assembly is disbanded. Show me one country where the Constituent Assembly is still continuing along with the government Constitution. It is not possible. When once the Constitution came into force, the function of Constituent Assembly ceases to function. Consequently, it has to be disbanded. Accordingly, Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly is also disbanded. Now, what is the procedure for removing the Article 370? It is temporary provision. A temporary provision at any given time, at any given point of some time, it has to be removed. Because the more temporary provisions are there, it is volatile union. We must have a unity and integrity in the country. This unity and integrity can be achieved only if volatile provisions are not there in the Constitution. From Article 370 onwards up to 20 pages, we have volatile provisions. And these provisions are creating weakness and a weak federation in India. That is the reason why developmental process must involve development of social institutions, development of groups of individuals, all of these things. For this reason, there is every possibility or there is every need to remove certain provisions at least. One such provision is Article 370. The problem is, when once Article 370 is added, right from the beginning, our people are having the idea of to remove this. How to remove this? We have interpretation clauses in Article 366 and 367. Article 366 provides for definitions, and Article 367 provides for principles of interpretation. In this, they say that the General Class Act will apply for the adaptations and the modifications in the Constitution. General Class Act will apply 1894. That we are regularly discussing about it. And secondly, the word Constituent Assembly is not there in this definition. That's the reason why, if anything is to be taken into account by the President under Article 370, Article 370 clause 1 says that the President can issue an order known as the Constitution Jammu Kashmir Order. And this provision, out of 97, 94 entries of the Union list were appended to or extended to Jammu and Kashmir, in addition to other laws. Even the Armed Forces Special Powers Act is also extended to Jammu and Kashmir by virtue of an order passed by the President under Article 370 clause 1. So the first the government did, they issued an order number 272, adding one particular clause to Article 367, known as interpretation clause. This Article 367 clause says that in the exercise of powers conferred by clause 1 of Article 370 of the Constitution, the President, with the concurrence of the government of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, is pleased to make the following order. See this. For the purpose of the Constitution as it applied to in relation to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, a reference to this Constitution or to the provisions thereof shall be construed as reference to the Constitution or the provisions thereof as applied in the state. Secondly, in a provision to clause 3 of Article 370, this Constitution, the expression Constituent Assembly of the state referred to in clause 2 shall be read as Legislative Assembly. That is the first stroke given by the President to Article 370. When the Constituent Assembly is referred to as the Legislative Assembly, then we have to seek the opinion of the Legislative Assembly for the purpose of removing Article 370. Since the Legislative Assembly is not there for a very long period, Kashmir under J&K is under President rule. Before that, under Governor rule for some period. Now it is under President rule. The Governor is the agent of the President. And the President has taken the consent of the Governor for the purpose of removing this particular article. This is the second stroke. With the second stroke, Article 370 ceased to exist. And the third one is, they have introduced bills for the purpose of reorganizing the state into union territories. That is different. So this is the crux of the problem now. Whether the President is having the power to repeal a provision in the Constitution. Here we have to say one thing legally. I do not know what practically is going on. Expressly, when Article 370 says that President is having the power to introduce anything into the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, here the Constitution has given this constituent power to the President but not to the Indian Parliament. The so-called constituent power is given to the President and not to the Indian Parliament. That is the reason why in some quarters now they are saying that the bill must be shown to the Indian Parliament, but there is no need to show the bill to the Indian Parliament because power is not given to the Parliament concerning Article 370. It is President whose take is final. But the President is subject to the concurrence of the either Constituent Assembly or Legislative Assembly of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Supposing if any law is to be extended, such law must receive the concurrence of the state of Jammu and Kashmir Assembly for the purpose of implementation in that state. Even if law is enacted by the parliament. It means parliament has nothing to do with that. Now, position is clear. President is having the power. That whether the president has exercised the power legally or illegally. That is the question. Next question. How you can say that this is illegal power? People are saying that you have to wait till the legislative assembly is convened and whether the legislative assembly expresses its opinion. Normally in a democracy what happens is, legislative assembly is elected by the people. Consequently, legislative assembly expresses its opinion. It is the opinion of the people. That is the reason why legislative assembly's concurrence is assigned. But legislative assembly is not there. Then what is to be done? Legislative assembly is not there. Then what is to be done? The only course is somehow the government must have power, armed with the power to remove Article 370 if they want to remove Article 370. That's the reason why the second order was made. Amending the first order, amending Article 367. President is having the constant power so far as Article 370 is concerned. For this constant power, the president has exercised and a provision is added to the interpretation clause for the purpose of arming himself with the power to dissolve or disband the Article 370. So this is the only conclusion which we can draw. Now, another issue here is we have some international problems. Though these are relevant or irrelevant, we do not know. But it is in the public domain to the effect that USA is coming out of Afghanistan. When the USA comes out of Afghanistan, they are going to enter into an agreement with the Taliban to maintain peace. And we know how Taliban maintains peace. We have a lot of experience with that. Many number of Afghanistan girls were kidnapped by these people and nobody knows the whereabouts of these girls, and these girls runs into hundreds, not one or two. And women are not supposed to enter into schools, women are not supposed to do jobs, women employment is prohibited, women education is prohibited by Taliban government, and Taliban government was there in Afghanistan. In the name of this Islamic faith. At the same time, Pakistan was being ruled by Benazir Bhutto, the woman, as Prime Minister. What is Islam in Afghanistan is also Islam in Pakistan. So in the name of Islam, if you prohibit the woman in Afghanistan, why not you prohibit this Benazir Bhutto also? So there is no equality as such. And one more problem is Article 35A. This 35A also was added by the presidential order to the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution in 1954. And this 35A says that if any Kashmiri woman marries a non-Kashmiri boy, the Kashmiri woman cannot inherit the property in Kashmir. And then power is given to the Legislative Assembly of the Jammu and Kashmir to decide who is the permanent resident in Kashmir and who is entitled to purchase property in Kashmir and who is entitled to enjoy the governmental benefits including jobs and other issues in Kashmir. Since minority rights are not applicable in Kashmir, SC/STs are not supposed to enjoy any kind of reservations in Jammu and Kashmir before 5th of this month. SC/ST reservations were not there. Because these reservations, all these things will not apply. Article 29 and 30 will not apply. The Supreme Court, High Court jurisdiction is limited. High Court in other states is having the power to issue writs for enforcing fundamental rights also, as well as non-fundamental rights known as statutory rights. Whereas in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, only for enforcing fundamental rights, the High Court is having jurisdiction and not for statutory rights. So in this way, there are a lot of discrimination being practiced by these laws, and these are known as discriminatory laws. There is no end for this. And so far as the international obligations of the state are concerned, we have a maxim. rebus, 6 tan ribus. This maxim says that state is exonerated from its obligation under an international understanding if there is vital change in the circumstances existing at the time when the obligation was undertaken. I will explain it. Plebiscite was to be conducted according to the instrument of accession given by Raja Hari Singh in 1947 also. Plebiscite was to be conducted. So in 1947, the people of Kashmir, the mentality of the people of Kashmir was totally different from their mentality today. This particular maxim was invoked by international law jurists to say that past obligations can need not be fulfilled by the state if circumstances are different now. Now the circumstances in the state of Jammu and Kashmir was such that when a piece of land was allotted to Amarnath Shrine Board, there was a virtual stoppage of work in Jammu and Kashmir till the government withdrew the order. Amarnath Shrine Board is also in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. The land is also allotted in Jammu and Kashmir and for this temple only. Even if it is allotted to the temple, the land will be within the jurisdiction of the Jammu and Kashmir state. Even that it was opposed. Because they invoked after 30 years, 35 years. So this is the position concerning the plebiscite. And the position concerning Constituent Assembly also I explained. The only issue is whether the President of India can issue an order to amend Article 367. Because Article 370 empowers the President of India to issue the order to amend or to extend the provisions of the Indian Constitution to the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution. Only this much of power is given. Power is not given to the President of India to amend the Indian Constitution. But the first stroke, that is 272 order, has amended the Indian Constitution but not the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. This is the only thing that is to be questionable and to be decided by the court. So with this, I will conclude. Thank you very much.
I approached Mr. Donald Trump for help when we are told in the media that Mr. Trump said it's not for United States. It should be settled according to the Simla Pact. But did we decide it bilaterally? These are questions. The questions are, did India decide the issue bilaterally or unilaterally? And does India have the power to unilaterally decide the status of Jammu and Kashmir? And this has been criticized by Pakistan and China. But anyway, friends, the state is in the process of integration with India, and a lasting peace. If this turn of events is going to bring about lasting peace in the valley, then we all naturally welcome these developments. And you have something to say?
Tomorrow we are going to celebrate 73rd Independence Day with 28 states and 9 UTs. I know it. 9 UTs. So we have started a very long history, independent history, right from the 1947. And at the time of the independence, we know that there were 565 free states, and almost all the states except 4, they have agreed to accede. They have signed the instrument of accession, and these 4 states, that is the Jammu and Kashmir, Hyderabad, Junagadh, and one more state I forgot. Hyderabad, Hyderabad, Jammu Kashmir, Junagadh and one more state. So those two states have accepted easily by convincing Sardar Vallabhbhai he has taken special steps, so he has come. But the topography and the situation of Jammu and Kashmir and Hyderabad were totally different. In Jammu and Kashmir, a Muslim dominated place ruled by a Hindu king. Quite reverse of Hyderabad. Hindu dominated place ruled by a So in Jammu and Kashmir, the king, the Hari Singh, right? He, when he wanted to accede, he had an option either to the Pakistan or to the India. Okay, and he chose. He chose to accede to the India. At that time, when he was the thinking process was going on, the Raja had a Diwan by name Gopal Swami Iyengar. He was a Diwan means minister. So while discussing with the king, the Diwan said that anyhow we are going to accede. Why should we leave our sovereignty and we should accept 100% the laws and everything of the India? Why not we should have a special status? So then it has inspired the king, the Diwan, that is the Gopal Swami Iyengar, who inspired him. So then he demanded, okay, I will sign the instrument, but we should have a special status. That means we should have a separate laws of our own state. Right? So in due course, what happened is that instead of separate status and all, special status, something like a separate status, that feeling has come up. In fact, it is special status. So several people, they have been politically stimulated, their ideology has been changed, they are being forced to think that we are separate. We are not as Indians, we are separate. We want everything separate. We will not accept any laws of India. No law should. That's why you open any enactment, any act. No? The very first provision will be, all the act will be applicable to whole of the India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Isn't it? So this is the impact of this accession of the instrument and all. And then we have seen the developments all the way, what happened here, and how only the three people, though it is a separate special status enjoyed, but actual enjoyment was dominated by only the three families. That is the Sheikh Abdullah family and the Mufti family or the family. The Raja Hari Singh and his son, the Dharam Singh, who is there now, but God to him significance, God knows what actual role he is doing. As there was no question of the land law, land ownership, that majority of the lands, powers, all were enjoyed by these three. They were having an apprehension. If we will accept to the Indian Constitution, again like all the laws will be made applicable, we have to follow all the rules and we will lose our, especially the royal treatment and royal these things, we will lose it. That is the fear. And that's how they are keeping, they are not doing it. And on the other hand, Pakistan on the other side. So Pakistan, at the time of the partition, the western part of the India is dominated by the Muslims. So the Pakistan actually wanted that part also to be joined with the Pakistan, which the people of that place, valley, we call it as a valley, it is called valley. Southern part of the Kashmir is Jammu. So that is a Hindu dominated. But the western part is Muslim dominated valley, the valley where 97% of the people are Muslims. Okay? So naturally, because there are 97% of the people are Muslims, the Pakistan has started claiming that this should be given to us. They should be not, but somehow it could not. But by force it has occupied part of this place, which we today call it as the POK. No, Pakistan occupied, they themselves occupied, and they have made that Muzaffarabad, which is the capital of that, and all this. And all these days we have seen the unrest and people, what kind of the life they were undergoing, and the threat every day, the threat they were. I am being told by one or two Kashmiris whom I have interacted that, madam, every night we will sleep with most uncertainty that whether we will see the sunrise the next morning. This is the threat and fear among them who are there because of the terrorist activities and all those things. So far development was concerned, absolute zero. Tourism has come to zero. Civil rights, almost nil. So what kind of we have on? We are going through the media reports and all those things. And what has happened, that is in the month of the August, that is the August, which is also a month for a very, what do you say, constitutionally or nationally a very significant month for all of us, that is the Independence Day, right? So Article 370 that has been abrogated along with the 35A and all those things, which very widely and what do you say, in the most possible way is being made understood by Professor Madhusudan Garu to you. And let us hope that the Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir will prosper and will get or will enjoy the similar rights just like the mainland. Whether it should be, the process was legally done or not done, the legal expert or legal luminaries, jurists are there to discuss about. But what I feel is that in days to come, definitely the state will prosper.
1952, Jawaharlal Nehru in Parliament, he said that Kashmir is not the property of either India or Pakistan. It belongs to the Kashmiri people. దీన్ని బేస్ చేసుకుని రీసెంట్గా వచ్చిన కమింగ్ ఏంటంటే ఈ ఆర్టికల్ 370 రిపీల్ అయినందుకు హర్షించాల్సింది మనం కాదు కాశ్మీరీ అని చెప్పి కమింగ్ చేస్తారు. దీని గురించి మీ ఒపీనియన్?
Point of time, a politician may give a statement. That statement is not binding. If that statement is binding, why Nehru gave an appeal to the UNO to conduct a plebiscite? Why Nehru gave an appeal to the UNO to conduct a plebiscite? Why not Nehru conducting the plebiscite first of all? During Nehru's time, plebiscite must have been conducted. At that time, the conditions were favorable to India. Why Nehru has not done that? What prevented the government from doing it? The only thing is, at that time, Jinnah put pressure on India, and immediately he sent the tribesmen who started raping the women, selling the Kashmiri girls, looting the Kashmiri people, and the arson was conducted. Because of this, Raja immediately came to New Delhi and then gave this instrument of action. What he have to do is, he must have conducted plebiscite during his lifetime itself, or during 1951-52 itself. At that time, the Jammu Kashmir Constitution was also there. Why he has not conducted? If Jinnah is not interested in conducting the plebiscite under the Indian forces, then another option was also there. Combined forces, Pakistani forces and Indian forces must support the plebiscite. That was floated by this Home Guard. Why this was not accepted, please? No, all these statements we cannot rely. They may give these statements depending upon the contingencies. But because at that time, the Kashmiris thought that we may be totally away from our Kashmirian. That is not true. In Hyderabad we have Muslims. Are they not protecting their own identity? In Aligarh we have Muslims. Are they not protecting their own identity? Are they been diluted by the Hindu culture? No. Even Kashmirians also will survive. That was the intention of the natives of Kashmir. Only to infuse this intention of other, and to see that some security must be conferred on these people or must be achieved to these people, Nehru must have made this statement. Not that Nehru is not interested in mixing or merging Kashmir with India. It is Nehru who said that I will conduct a plebiscite under the supervision of the Indian forces. But Jinnah objected this. That is what happened.
Kashmir is within the control of Pakistan. So how this dispute can be resolved? Our country can right now, by standing of Article 370, can get into occupied Kashmir also, or else UNO has to settle this dispute. Or it is the same way we are seeing Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The same way the Pakistan also seeing as Indian occupied Kashmir, but no control is imposed by India or Pakistan occupied Kashmir. How can this dispute can be resolved in any way?
It is not a legal issue. When once Article 370 is abrogated, there is no POK, technically. Since it is under occupation of Pakistan, it is the duty of the government of India to release this POK into IOK. It is a political issue. It is not a legal issue. When Article 370 is abrogated, POK as such is not there, only Kashmir is there. That is the reason why Amit Shah said, we are going to conduct elections in the POK. Otherwise, you would not have said this.
Military operation చేశారు సార్. సో అక్కడ హైదరాబాద్ ని ఇన్వైట్ చేశారు అండ్ నిజాం నవాబ్ ని క్యాప్చర్ చేశారు. సో అలాంటి మిలిటరీ ఆపరేషన్ జమ్మూ అండ్ కాశ్మీర్ ఎందుకు చేయలేకపోయారు?
During 1972 war, even during 1970 war, in 72 war was there between India and Pakistan. Indian forces went up to POK, but they were asked to come back. What was the reason is not known to the people till now. At that time, it was very easy to capture POK. It would have been completed by that time. Instead of capturing POK, our people started disintegrating Pakistan, and each Pakistan was made as Bangladesh. Now the problem, one particular international expert by name V.S. Murthy, Professor V.S. Murthy, here only, he said this: when we have divided the Pakistan, how can they keep quiet without dividing in India? Definitely, they will take at least a small piece from India, which India cannot say no. So, when there is a war between two countries, law is totally becomes an ass. So, might is right concept prevails. That's how it happened. Otherwise, on that day itself, it would have been taken. But the Raja of Jammu and Kashmir was not against to accession to India. Whereas Hyderabad Raja was against to accession to India, and he said that I want to declare my country as an independent country within Andhra, within India, South India. That was not accepted, and Operation Polo was conducted by under the hegemony of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. But the same thing cannot be done there, because the Raja has given the instrument of accession to the government of India, and he has acceded it, and that was already accepted with the Pakistani forces, and they were looting the country like anything else. They were looting the Kashmir like anything. At that time, many number of people were killed. Most of them were raped. Kashmiri girls were sold. They were auctioned actually. Kashmiri girls were taken away. Military Meena wrote one particular observation. At night at 10 o'clock or so, on the height of these problems, he went to Kashmir. He had a discussion with Raja, and immediately he has to meet Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel in Delhi. Then he got a helicopter. One woman with folded hands, weeping, asked him, "These are my two daughters. Take them to Delhi, leave them at Delhi street. If these people are here, these people will sell these girls. I will die here, no problem. At least we save my two girls." And then V.P. Menon took them in his helicopter and he left them in the Delhi. That was the situation. It's not an ordinary situation in those days. Otherwise, Kashmir Raja, who wants to be an independent country, he never have accepted for the instrument of accession, but for the loss of the people. in the interest of the people of Jammu and Kashmir only, he entered into instrument of action.
Question. Before annulment, the defense communication is the union only. And after annulment, is there any possibility to preserve the culture and heritage of the Kashmiri people?
Islamic culture is diluted in Aligarh. Whether the Islamic culture in old city of Hyderabad is diluted, whether Islamic culture in Kannur district is diluted, no.
But after
Indian Constitution protected the culture also. Article 29 and 30 will apply there also. Previously, before this, Article 29 and 30 will not apply. Now Article 29 will apply. Cultural rights are guaranteed by Article 29. They can preserve their culture, they can preserve their language. There is no objection for this. Because all the entire constitution will apply now.